Imagine waking up tomorrow and every debt on Earth is gone. Not reduced, not restructured, gone. $300 trillion. Mortgages, student loans, government bonds, credit card balances, erased in a single moment. One button, one decision, and it's over. For a second, imagine how that would feel. The family paying off a house for 20 more years, free. The country crushed under interest payments to other countries, free. No more working just to service what you owe. No more nations bleeding their budgets dry to pay back loans they took decades ago. This isn't a new idea, actually. 3,000 years ago, in ancient Mesopotamia, rulers periodically declared what was called a clean slate, a total cancellation of debts so farmers wouldn't become permanent slaves to their creditors. It kept society from collapsing into a two-class system, the ones who own and the ones who owe forever. So what if we did that again, but everywhere, all at once, for everyone? At first, it sounds like liberation, a reset button for 8 billion people. But debt isn't just a number on a screen, it's a thread. And when you cut every thread in the world at the same moment, you don't just free the people tied down, you unravel the whole fabric. Here's the part most people don't think about. Debt isn't just something you owe, it's something someone else owns. When your mortgage disappears, so does the bank's asset. When a government's bonds are erased, so are the pension funds, insurance companies, and retirement accounts holding those bonds as their safety net. And here's the deeper problem. Most of the money in the world doesn't exist as cash in a vault. It exists as debt. When a bank gives you a loan, it doesn't hand you money that was sitting there waiting. It creates new money in that moment, out of nothing, backed by your promise to pay it back. Economists estimate that well over 90% of the money circulating in modern economies was created exactly this way, as debt. Which means, if you erase all debt, you don't just erase what people owe, you erase most of the money supply itself. The morning after the clean slate, banks wouldn't be relieved. They'd be empty. Not just poorer, structurally hollow, because their entire business model is built on the assumption that loans get repaid with interest over time. And here's where the trouble really starts. Why would any bank ever lend again? If debt can be wiped out once by decree, what's stopping it from happening twice? Lending isn't just math, it's trust. And trust, once broken this completely, doesn't come back with a policy announcement. Now watch what happens next, because this is where it stops being about spreadsheets and starts being about people. With no functioning credit system, small businesses can't get loans to buy equipment or make payroll. New homes stop getting built because construction runs on borrowed capital. Farmers can't buy seed for next season on credit the way they have for centuries. The entire rhythm of modern economic life, plant now, harvest later, pay back after, grinds to a stop. This has actually happened before on a smaller scale. In Argentina in 2001, when the banking system collapsed and people lost access to credit and even to their own savings, millions of people didn't just struggle, they built entire parallel economies. Barter clubs called trueque sprang up in nearly every province. People traded haircuts for bread, plumbing repairs for clothing, using handwritten credit notes instead of money, because the money they trusted had stopped functioning. That's the real trajectory of a global debt jubilee. Not chaos and riots in the streets. Something slower, and in some ways stranger. A quiet retreat backward. Communities relearning how to trade the way humans did before banks existed at all. Face-to-face, favor for favor. Because the invisible machinery of credit that modern life depends on has gone silent. And underneath all of it, something else starts to shift. People who spent years being careful saving, paying on time, avoiding debt, watch their discipline mean nothing, while people who borrowed recklessly walk away clean. It doesn't just break an economic system, it breaks a shared sense of fairness that economies quietly depend on to function at all. There's a warning from history that almost nobody remembers because it doesn't fit the story we like to tell about paying off debt. In 1835, the United States actually did it. President Andrew Jackson paid off the entire national debt, the only time in American history this has ever happened. For one single year, the U.S. government owed nothing to anyone. And instead of prosperity, what followed was the Panic of 1837, one of the worst depressions in American history. Because eliminating that debt also eliminated a foundation that banks, investors, and the entire financial system had built themselves around. Government bonds weren't just debt. They were considered among the safest assets in the world, something banks held as reserves, something the whole system used as bedrock. Remove the bedrock, and everything built on top of it has nowhere to stand. That's the real abyss hiding beneath a global debt jubilee. It's not that people would suffer temporarily and then rebuild. It's that the very idea of long-term trust between strangers, the invisible agreement that lets a bank in Tokyo lend to a farmer in Nebraska it will never meet, would be damaged in a way that might not heal in a generation. Because civilization's entire financial architecture is built on one fragile assumption, that a promise made today will still mean something in 20 years. Erase that assumption once, completely, globally, and you don't just cancel debt. You cancel the future as something people are willing to plan for. Money stops being a bridge between now and later. It becomes only what's in your hand right now. And a civilization that can only think in the present is a civilization that has quietly lost something much larger than debt. Here's the strange truth underneath all of this. The anthropologist David Graeber spent years studying the origins of debt, and he found something that overturns almost everything we assume about money. Debt didn't appear after money. It came first. Long before coins or currency existed, communities kept track of favors, obligations, and promises between each other. Who helped whom, who owed whom, and when it would be returned. Debt wasn't a trap invented by banks. It was one of the oldest ways humans built trust with people they weren't related to. So maybe the real question was never, what if all debt disappeared? Maybe the real question is what debt actually is underneath the interest rates and the spreadsheets. It's a promise stretched across time. It's proof that two people, or two nations, believe there will still be a tomorrow worth showing up for. A world without debt isn't a world without burden. It's a world that has quietly stopped believing in its own future. And maybe that's the real weight behind every loan, every mortgage, every bond sitting quietly in a filing cabinet somewhere. Not a chain. A bet that we'll still be here, keeping our word when the time comes to pay it back.